Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Mangiatordi and I'm a researcher in special education and educational technology. Today I will tell you a bit about a design framework known as Universal Design. Universal Design was originally developed in the 70s as a paradigm in the field of architecture by Ronald Mace, a professor at the North Carolina State University. He was also the founder of a research center on inclusive and accessible design at the same institution, which still exists. He concentrated his reflection on the idea that things, such as buildings, tools, furniture, but in general everything that people and designers build, should be accessible to all people without the need for adaptations or special solutions. It's a simple yet powerful idea. If we design things to be accessible by default, then we can avoid wasting time and resources in adapting them for users with special needs, but not just for them. Every time we design something, we have this general idea in mind that we are designing for a specific target, which also in our minds tends to be an idealized version of our users, an average person who is part of a more or less defined group. In our mind, the target user has blurred features and represents our idea of what the actual user could look like. But users who actually fit in the average of something, normal users, are not the norm. They are idealizations, they are ghosts. We think of them but almost never meet them. Instead, we meet actual people who represent variations from the norm. Ronald Mace initially had people with disabilities in mind. They represent uncommon cases. They stand at the very limit of human functionality as we know it, and sometimes lack essential abilities that are required to access, to use, to enjoy the products we build. For people with disabilities, we have laws regulating the way we can design buildings and other artifacts, such as websites, for example, to be accessible for specific groups of people. Mace highlighted the problems related to the fact that simple compliance with the laws and regulations is not enough. Why is that? Because laws are mostly written having standard problems in mind, such as not being able to use a stairwell, or the inability to see, or the impossibility to hear sound and voice. They have a comprehensible tendency towards generalizing problems and making them a matter of do's and don'ts. This leads, as Mace puts it, at having accessible buildings that are okay for 99% or even 99.999% of wheelchair users, for example. But you will find one, just one, that simply can't use the accessible toilet autonomously, or who won't be able to operate, say, an elevator. For those few people, barriers are even heavier than for the others. They would be the excluded among the minorities. But we can ask ourselves, how does all of this apply to instructional design? Universal design has been applied to instructional design, or even better, to learning design, since around the year 2000. The idea is simple. The same principles that can be applied to buildings can also be applied to curricula, to learning paths, to lesson plans, to learning content in general. And ultimately, how is this related to gender balance? Let's go back to the design of generic objects for a moment and take a simple example into consideration. As Caroline Criado Perez tells us in her book Invisible Women, one size does not fit all. It fits men. She tells the story of Christopher Donison, inventor of the 7/8 keyboard, a piano keyboard fitting 8 keys where there are regularly 7. He thought of it because he had small hands, smaller than those of most famous piano players, and it was very difficult for him to use a regular piano. A problem that many female piano players experience constantly, since the regular size is based on the average span that a big male hand can cover. The interesting thing is that this does not simply affect performance. Female players tend to suffer more of repetitive strain injuries, for example. As Criado Perez puts it, many things are designed with men and their physical form and abilities in mind. We could say the average user, the one Ronald Mace used to talk about, is male. And if this applies to regular objects, the risk that it would affect learning design is very high. Universal design tries to offer a way to solve the average user problem by proposing a set of principles that guide designers in the very complex task of not forgetting about difference. Now, let's have a look at each principle in its original formulation. Principle 1 is equitable use. The design is useful and marketable to people with diverse abilities. This first principle tells us that a gender-neutral approach is preferable to a differentiated pathway. Equal dignity should be given to variations of the same design. Can you think of a product that exists in female and male version? Now focus on it and try to ask yourselves, is that necessary for that specific product? And why? Principle 2 is flexibility in use. The design accommodates a wide range of individual preferences and abilities. People have different inclinations, even when they have many other traits in common. Can you think of one product that, for example, is not easy or even very difficult to use for people who are left-handed? Can you think of something that seems to be very difficult to use, especially for women? For example, we mentioned one before, if you remember. And for men? Principle 3 is simple and intuitive use. Use of the design is easy to understand, regardless of the user's experience, knowledge, language skills, or current concentration level. And Principle 4 says perceptible information. The design communicates necessary information effectively to the user, regardless of ambient conditions or the user's sensory abilities. Does gender impact on one's ability to understand the way a specific machine works? Does it change the way we perceive and decode information from the world around us? These two principles offer an opportunity to reflect on many stereotypes and to avoid falling for them. Principle 5 is tolerance for error. The design minimizes hazards and the adverse consequences of accidental or unintended actions. And Principle 6, low physical efforts, says that the design can be used efficiently and comfortably and with a minimum of fatigue. Hazards can come from extensive and repetitive efforts, as we saw about the case of the 7/8 keyboard again. And Criado Perez offers another example. Smartphones are getting larger and larger. What could the cause be? Principle 7, size and space for approach and use. Appropriate size and space is provided for approach, reach, manipulation and use, regardless of user's body size, posture or mobility. This last principle puts the focus on context. The world around us is full of hints to gender-related common classifications. Gender-balanced design should not look like a variation from the hegemonic way of looking at things. The application of these universal design principles requires a lot of hard work. The general idea behind universal design practice is that you either regularly integrate accessibility in what you do, or you risk being overwhelmed by how many issues can arise. As Mace himself once wrote, there will always be people who cannot use an item, no matter how thoughtfully it is designed. Variability in people, in their skill levels, in their ability or inability to do something, can't be always accounted for. Does this make universal design utopic and impossible to achieve? Not at all. We have to keep in mind that design is a process, and that designs get refined every day and can improve at every iteration. The important thing is to keep an open eye on what could possibly be better and more balanced.